Winter came down like a door slammed on hinges of ice. The fjord that in summer breathed blue now lay under a crust of snow that squeaked at every step. Longships slept on their trestles, ribs bare, sails folded like great pale wings. The longhouses breathed smoke through turf roofs, and the air smelled of tar, fish oil, and cold iron. Ásgeirr Gudbrandsson worked beside his father in the small winter forge. Bog iron bloomed dull red in the low furnace. His father turned it with calm, patient strokes, tapping rivets on the anvil and talking in the steady, practical way of men who keep things from falling apart. "Measure twice before you strike," Gudbrandr said without looking up. "A good blow is not a hard blow, but a right one." Ásgeirr nodded, though his mind wandered to the river, to the sword the water had given him. It lay wrapped in linen on a shelf, oiled and sleeping. He had not named it. To name a sword was to boast. Boys boasted, walls of shields did not. The thing of winter drew families from upcoast and inland, traders with sledges, shepherds with thin-faced dogs, carpenters with adzes sharp as moonlight. They came to petition, to barter, to tell news of storms. Among them walked a girl with a fox fur cloak, much too big for her, and a bronze hawk brooch pinned at the throat. She moved through the snow as if it were a road laid for her alone. "Those lashings will slip," she said on the first morning, watching men secure a longship's yard. The overseer snorted until she took the rope, flipped 3 neat turns, and cinched a knot that bit down like a jaw. The men fell quiet. The girl grinned, grey eyes bright. Her name, people said, was Yrsa Lufilda, a name with a soft sound and a wild meaning. She had come with a kin group displaced by storms. She asked questions like sparks. How far to the islands? How deep is the channel at moonrise? Why pitch instead of raw resin? Why do you breathe like that before you throw? Ásgeirr pretended not to watch. Yrsa pretended not to see him pretend. On the forge's 3rd morning, she wandered in on a gust of snow, hawk brooch bright in the glow. "You work like a monk," she told Ásgeirr, peering at his spearhead. "Quiet, careful, a little dull." "And you talk like the wind," he replied. "Loud, everywhere, and not always useful." Her mouth tilted. "Useful enough to see your haft's grain runs crooked. It'll split when you jab hard." He looked. She was right. He bit back a reply, set the spear aside, and selected a better length of ash. That became their rhythm, argument as the first language. If she cut fast, he cut slow. If he counted, she leapt. If she teased, he answered with a rule. If he ruled, she overturned the table with a smile. They met in other places, the ship shed, where tar steamed in winter light, the training yard, where posts stood like wooden men, the frozen shore, where ice sang in the tide cracks. She climbed rigging faster than any boy. He could hold a shield steady until his shoulder burned. She hit a hanging target with a short throwing spear 2 out of 3. He hit it 3 out of 3 and said nothing. "Does your face ever change?" she asked one afternoon after losing a sprint on the snow. "Or were you born with that sensible frown?" "I prefer to do a thing well before I talk about it," he said, lungs steadying. "Then you already have half my respect," she said, and stuck her tongue out, then laughed at his surprise, and hurled her spear into the practice post so cleanly it quivered dead center. The boys watching whooped. Ásgeirr frowned and tried not to smile back. He failed. At night, the fjord became a silver road under starlight. They met at the ice edge, working breath into the cold. Yrsa showed him how to test crust with a long stick, how to listen for the hollow notes that told where the sea's hunger lay underneath. He showed her the unlovely secrets of steadiness, how to lock a shield to a neighbor's rim, how to push with legs and not just arms, how to step, short, never wide, so the wall did not break. "Why do you do everything as if a law stands behind it?" she asked, lying back to watch the lights. Thin, pale curtains of aurora walked the sky. "Because the law stands behind me," he said, "behind all of us. And if the law is wrong? Then we change it at the thing." She laughed softly. "Change it? Like pitch to resin with one good sentence?" He let that pass. He thought of the seeress and the sword. He thought of Halbjorn, the lifeline taut as fate. There were things swifter than speech. In the 2nd week of deep winter, the Jarl called for trials, a string of tests to choose 6 young people for the spring north run into waters few had mapped. Not a raid, the Jarl said. A voyage of findings, soundings, landfalls, maybe a monastery with trade, hard weather, hard rowing, hard decisions. Ásgeirr's name went up early. When he saw Yrsa's name chalked below his heart beat once, hard as a hammer on iron. "They won't take a girl," he told her, not unkindly. "Then they will not take the best of the 6, she said, not unkindly back. The first trial was endurance, a circuit around the frozen meadow with a pack of stones and a pole across the shoulders. Yrsa fell twice and sprang up twice fiercer. Ásgeirr never fell, At the end, he looked as composed as a hearthstone, though sweat iced his brows. Yrsa finished a body length behind, grinning with her entire face. The second trial was balance. Cross a section of inshore ice without cracking it. The path glittered, deceptively sound, strung across black water. Ásgeirr moved like a man crossing a law. Careful, measured, weight low, eyes listening. He made it first. On his last step, the ice coughed and spidered behind his boots. He steadied, and a hand shot out, Yrsa's, to grab his sleeve and pull him the half step he had already taken. "You had it," she said, breath white. "I had it," he agreed, and only then realized her hand was still on his sleeve. She let go quickly and scuffed at the snow. The third trial was skill, 3 throws with short spears at hung targets. Yrsa hit 2 clean and kissed her teeth at the miss. Ásgeirr hit 3 and said nothing. The old warriors marking scores said nothing too, but the boys cheered Ásgeirr's name in a way that felt like a shove in the back. He didn't like that. The last trial was judgment. A mock rescue at the cliff near the goat pens, where rhyme rhymed everything, and the wind chewed words into rags. Pairs drew lots for the order. The gods, being fond of theatre, paired Ásgeirr and Yrsa together. "Think fast," Yrsa shouted over the wind at the ridge. "Think right," Ásgeirr shouted back, fastening the rope through the belay he had triple-tested. She went over first, light on the line, planting her feet on frozen smears of stone. He fed rope, watching every micro-jolt. She reached the injured shepherd, a sack stuffed with straw and a goat skull to make the boys snicker, and secured a sling in a blaze of movement. When she called for the haul, he paid out half a breath too slow, because the line had hummed wrong, because he felt the rock shift. The judges' sand timers ran, and by the time he gave the pull signal, another team had beaten them by the span of a breath and a shout. Back on the ridge they stood nose to nose, snow needling their faces, both talking at once. "Not everything is thinking, spear boy. Not everything is running, fjord fire." Then they both started to laugh despite themselves, which vexed the judges, who preferred solemnity in the young. At dusk, the Jarl climbed onto the ale cask in the center of the field and read 6 names. They came like axe strokes in frozen air. 5 boys, 1 girl. When he said Yrsa Ljufvilda, the sound moved through the crowd like a fish through water, dissolving, reforming, some hands lifted, some fists closed. "She will go as scout and signaller," the Jarl added in the same tone he used for weather. "No sword, but a hawk's eyes." Ásgeirr's name was not called. He felt the world narrow to the size of his chest, not chosen. Not because he was weak, he wasn't. Not because he was foolish, he wasn't. Later he would hear the old men mutter, "Too careful for a first run north, we need risk-takers when ice decides the hour." He found a corner of the ship shed to stand in and listen to his breath. Yrsa found him there, hawk brooch gleaming softly in lamplight. She didn't smirk, she didn't look away. "You'll sulk until spring," she asked, but her voice was gentle. "I'll work," he said,